Welcome to Spirit Gym. Today's guest is someone who embodies the essence of awakening in our times of great transition. Cynthia Rivard is an author, intuitive channel, spiritual late bloomer, and proof that waking up doesn't come with an age limit. Cynthia and Paul explore the power of channeling as a natural human skill, the spiritual meaning behind the chaos we see in the world, and how we can begin walking with God, not as followers, but as conscious co-creators. She shares how she went from boardrooms and busy mum life to cosmic downloads, divine clarity, and disrupting old religious programming, all without losing her sense of humor or her love for humanity. Her new book, Hope for a New Era, Turning the Tide, Love and Leadership Through Turbulent Times, is a must-read for those who are ready to take responsibility for improving our current broken and toxic behaviors and systems with compassionate action today. If you enjoy this conversation, we invite you to explore the deeper levels of connection and conversation available in the Spirit Gym membership community. Go to myspiritgym.com for details. And before we dive in, we'd like to say thank you for listening, as this podcast would not be possible without you, our subscribers and followers. We'd also like to thank our premier sponsors, Organifi, Bioptimizers, Paleo Valley and Wild Pastures, and our newest sponsors, Correct Life and Peak Tea. You'll hear their special offers and discounts throughout this episode, or you can visit the show notes page at paulchek.com/podcast.
Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking with Cynthia Rivard, author of a new book that I think everybody should know about called Hope for a New Era. That book will be available in June. And when the public relations people sent me an overview, which I get countless of, normally which I ignore, I read the overview of the book and about Cynthia, and I thought, wow, that is a very important topic to talk about on the podcast. So I reached out to Cynthia, and she is here to share Hope for a New Era. So welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you, Paul. I'm so delighted to be here. Thanks for having me. It's going to be good.
My pleasure. I found your bio very interesting, Cynthia, and it's lovely to see people with your skills and abilities coming forward to support humanity through, I believe, probably the most important world transition we've ever encountered. Maybe to begin with, so people can get to know you, you could share a little bit about your developmental history and how you developed the skills that brought you to be the woman that you are today.
So I assume when you say that, you're talking about the channeling skills and what led me to writing the book specifically?
More that, but just what shaped you into the person you are, whatever you want to share that helps us say, I have a feeling I can have a sense of connection to this woman. I know who's talking to me.
All right. Well, I love sharing this because I feel like when I started to become spiritually curious, I thought I was I didn't have any gifts and I was too old to go down this path. So I was asleep for a very, very long time. We'll just say that.
That's not unusual.
I had, an executive career and raised 4 delightful children. They're young adults now, very, very proud. And so I found out when my guidance became so clear, and honestly, with the timing of everything, I was a little frustrated, like, why the heck didn't you wake me up sooner? Because it was intentional that I was kept asleep. My purpose for that part of my life was developing my leadership skills and raising my children. But now there's going to be so many more people waking up because of this transitional time we're in. And so finally it was about, honestly, I was about to turn 60. I remember when my world just took off and I came a little more into the spiritual space. I didn't even know what I was doing really, but that was just a few years ago that I really stepped in because it was time to wake up, and I was being guided. I just followed the breadcrumbs. I was curious, but I had no idea what to do or how to do it, but I was synchronicities or whatever led in the right directions. I listened to one podcast that sparked my interest, and then I went and listened to another one somewhere else, and it just kind of snowballed. But I really, there were a lot of things that I didn't understand about spirituality. And I understand now that that was intentional as well, because my guidance wanted me to learn from them. So when I share things, and I'll put this out here up front, when I share things, I typically will share things that it may be the first time somebody's heard it, or I share it in a different way because I wasn't really taught anywhere else. I got it, from the source, and so what I like to share with my students and my readers is to just stay open to possibilities, not to listen, not to think, that's an expert over there. I should listen to them because that gets us in a lot of trouble. I encourage
Yep.
everyone, but to stay open because just because you haven't heard it before doesn't mean it's not truth, but sit with it and then check in with your own inner knowing because I think what I share will resonate, but it's the truth is in you to know.
One of the things that you mentioned is, during your period of being asleep, that you were focusing on raising children. And I think that's one of the big challenges that we have, not only in families today, but women are having due to the way the culture has selective pressures that have put so many women at work, not in the household, and children really being babysat by video games and social media and television sets. And so I think the fact that you were devoted to that and not distracted is actually something that the world could use more
Well,
of.
I wish I could say I was completely devoted, but that wasn't my path. I was working more than full time as well. So they were important, and I had a very short commute, and I made as much time, and it was wonderful. That there's a lot of pluses to having children socialized earlier in daycare, and some of us don't have choices to work or not work. I don't have any regrets that I was a working mom, but I was very, very busy was the kind of the point to that story. They were my purpose and developing my leadership style and skills. But I was too busy to think about myself and my spiritual development. And I knew I wanted more. I had had a brief little inkling. It was amazing. I still remember when I was in high school, a retreat I went on and a connection that I really wanted back. And I couldn't figure out how to get there. And I didn't have time. And so I was just kept really busy was that chapter of my life until it was time to shake me awake, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think I appreciate everything you're saying, and I realize that's just a thing called reality. I think that one of the sad things is we have so many broken marriages that the kids seem to most commonly go with mom, not dad, if there's a breakup. And then you have a mother who does not have the support, oftentimes, of a husband who's trying to be dad and mom at the same time. And I think that creates quite a pressure cooker situation that I don't think is optimal. I know it's also reality, but I don't think it's optimal. I think part of what we need to look at as a culture worldwide is how can we organize our priorities and set up our business systems, our work way of working, and and how we do things with an emphasis on the importance of raising children in ways that are wholesome for their development, since they are ultimately all of our future.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of things that need overhauled with our systems. And the reality, I'm sure we'll get to that, but the reality is that with the way the financial systems have gone, it's really not realistic for in a lot of situations for just one parent to work. And of course, there's a lot of single parent households anyway. Daycare is outrageously expensive, and it just adds to the angst and the worry of people. And we could do better, and I believe we will in the future. But there's just everything major overhauls we need.
All of these things, of the laundry list we could put together of where the overhauls are, things that we have to learn so that when we do make overhauls, we are clear why we're doing them and we're coming from a place of experience, not just a new idea.
Well, true. I mean, you beta test, I guess. You see what's working somewhere, and you start in small groups, and then you spread it or you tweak it and revamp it. You can't just layer out a whole new system around the nation all at once. But there's a lot of things that need to be redesigned, we'll say.
That's how all the world religions got started, exactly like you just described.
Oh, really? Redesigning.
Well, yeah, no, well, no, starting off with, one person having an enlightenment experience, and then others becoming interested. How'd you do it? What did you do? And then a small group becomes bigger, and then big groups fracture and travel around the world. And the next thing you know, you have a world
Got it.
religion.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I'm saying, like, a religion is a social system at its core. It's a system of ethics, morals, values, and a way of living, and they don't happen overnight. And you can't just plug in a new religion, just like you can't plug in a new way of living. That even though we need one, we'd have to know exactly what we're doing, or we would probably just do something else that doesn't work. One thing that you mentioned is you're getting guidance. I'd love it if you can share where is the guidance coming from for you.
So all of us have divinity within us. Um, and you might call it it's a part of you, your higher consciousness or higher self or inner wisdom. And this is what I connected with.
Good, very
Um,
good. And would you use soul for that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Would you use the word soul for that aspect of yourself?
No, we all have different words that come to mean something to us. I use the word consciousness. We have three levels of
Great. Yeah.
consciousness: the higher, our subconscious, and then our conscious awareness, which we think of as ourselves. But all three of those aspects make up us, including the higher self or higher consciousness. It's part of us. So, tapping into that is the way we're meant to function as humans, and most of us ignore it. When we get those divine downloads, we think, "Oh, that's crazy. Where'd that come from?" That doesn't, I need to analytically go figure this out, or I'm scared I can't go do that. But we all get those downloads occasionally. Most people don't understand what it is, but it is their connection with divinity, that piece of them that's trying to guide them, that's there to guide us all of our lives so that we can live our soul's path and purpose.
hmm So if when you're channeling, because I remember you mentioning that you do channeling work, is that what you're channeling?
Yes. And so I was not aware of what channeling was. So I'll share the definition that was given to me because it kind of freaked me out when I realized, oh, I'm channeling? What? Um, It's really just that communication that we're receiving from divinity. Now, mine became very clear very quickly, but when people get those intuitive downloads, that's channeling. When they get that knowing or that idea out of the blue that they don't know how they came up with it. That really is channeling. That's all it is. Mine is crystal clear and I get full sentences, but it's the same skill. And I love to share that because I had this impression that it's a gift, and if I didn't start with these intuitive downloads when I was 3 or 10, then I don't have a hope of having something like that. I'm not gifted. But it's been made very clear to me that it's not a gift, it's a skill, and it's available to everyone.
It's a gift you have to develop.
Right, right.
It's a God-given gift. Yeah, that's good. I'm very deep into all this stuff, and so you're not speaking anything unusual for me. I think because of the way channeling has become popularized and how most people encounter channelers, they're almost always channeling a guide, or somebody's channeling somebody and they have a different name. Well, I'm talking to Bashar, or you know Abraham, or any number of them. So people tend to associate channeling with talking to some other conscious entity other than themselves. A Jungian psychologist would probably put what you're calling channeling more in the class of intuition, intuitive guidance, because of the framework of Jungian psychology.
Well, I think of intuition as coming from the subconscious, so it has to have had exposure to the ideas before, or something would have had to have come into my subconscious to for my intuition to bubble it up. And the subconscious is where all of our resistance is, and our subconscious programming that tries to keep us safe. So when you have an inspired idea that's out of your comfort zone, that's not your subconscious talking. that is
Not
that
usually.
is your divinity. And I will also share that when people, you see people channeling on TV or YouTube or whatever, you hear about them, they will frequently identify, oh, I'm channeling whatever archangel so and so, or this ascended master, or that. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time, I've been told it actually is their higher self coming through. I've been told it's spiritual marketing, if you will.
That's a good
I
term.
Yeah, they came up with it. Uh, the it, the message is more important than how it's delivered. So it will be wrapped in a package that they think you will receive, or the audience that you're meant to get through to will receive. And so, if you are someone that, grew up hearing about angels, you may end up being told you're channeling an angel, but really all of divine consciousness are, it's all higher consciousness. You can call them angels, you can call them spirit guides. Um, the exception to that, you mentioned Bashar, and that is an extraterrestrial coming through. So it's more not really channeling because he's not higher consciousness. It's more telepathy, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think channeling is used classically to depict information coming from a source outside of yourself. Whatever name you put on it, that's up to the channeler. But yeah, it's just good. It's good to, I like to get clarifications with people that I interview, because I want to know what things mean to you. Because as you know, people will put their own labels on your words, and that may be favorable. It may not be favorable. It may make them think that they're listening to a crazy person, but really they might be actually saying the same thing, but they don't realize what's being said. So that's great. What is your spiritual philosophy and worldview? Well, you go ahead and
I'm
finish
sorry,
what you
Paul.
wanted
I
to
just
say.
wanted to add one more caveat talking about what people channel, because you mentioned Abraham, and that is most definitely a different consciousness. That's not Esther channeling her higher self. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I
But in
understand.
most cases, it is what I've been told. Um, sorry. So you asked me, what is
your spiritual philosophy and your worldview?
So, my spiritual philosophy is that the world's religions and New Age culture and, everything over time has made it all too complicated and created more walls between us and divinity. And it's not that complex. It doesn't have to
That's a
be.
great one.
It is very accessible, and the minute you become aware that you are receiving, even if it's you're just not really sure, or it only happens occasionally, that you are receiving a message from your divine aspect, you're awake spiritually, and you just have to lean in and develop that skill more, but you're awake. And it's made, there's so much, well, dogma obviously with religions over so many thousands of years, but there's also a lot in the spiritual space. This is why I guess I was overwhelmed and didn't know where to start. That there's just all these things you see people doing or talking about, and no clear path. And I think what it comes down to is, if it resonates with you, great, but you don't have to. It's not that complex. Just receive communication and develop that relationship with God or divinity.
I'd like to share something that we have recently been introduced to and are enjoying here at Paul's Rainbow House, and that's Peak's Pu'er tea. This isn't your average health tea. Pu'er is a sacred fermented tea, traditionally revered in Chinese medicine for its ability to cleanse the body, nurture the digestive fire, and build life force. And it works on multiple planes. Try a cup of black pu'er to start your day and tune into a deeper frequency and a grounded clarity. And after meals, a warm cup of green pu'er can help you feel light, balanced, and in harmony with your food, not weighed down by it. Here's what makes this tea unique. Because it's fermented, it contains living probiotics and prebiotics, living intelligence, designed to rebuild the health of your gut microbiome, which, as Paul has said countless times, is the foundation of your immunity, mood, and even your spiritual clarity. It's also loaded with polyphenols and antioxidants that support metabolic function, cellular regeneration, and longevity. In other words, this is a daily tea for anyone who wants to age consciously and with grace. And let's face it, none of us are getting any younger. The sourcing of this tea is impeccable. It is wild harvested from 250-year-old tea trees that have deep roots and deep plant wisdom. And thanks to Peak's unique formulation, it dissolves instantly, hot or cold, making it super simple to integrate into your day. So if you're working on gut healing, seeking more presence in your body, or just looking to feel lighter and clearer in your daily life, this is a ritual I highly recommend. Peak also has an amazing offer for Paul's podcast listeners. 20% off for life, plus a free rechargeable frother and glass beaker when you try their Pu'er bundle. They also have a 90-day guarantee, because real healing should be built on trust and not pressure. So try Peak's black or green Pu'er teas. Go to peaklife.com/Paul Chek. That's PIQUE life.com/Paul Chek.
I think one of the key things that I teach my students and my patients and clients is pay close attention to how your heart is responding to what you receive, because the head's a very tricky place to hang
Yes, it
out.
is.
Really, I believe only the heart can deliver justice to the head. So if we are not anchoring ourselves in our heart and paying attention to whether or not the guidance we're getting from whatever source it may be coming from is love and life affirmative, then we can easily fall into something that might sound like divinity in your head, but it could be a lot of different sources, particularly the unconscious mind.
Right. Yes. The subconscious plays a lot of tricks on us. The other thing you asked about my worldview,
Worldview.
and there is a lot of love and light in this world that we don't get to see on the news usually. So I want to make that statement first. However, we're all aware that there is a whole lot of heaviness and pain and hurt that needs healing, and a lot of work that we need to do. So the sooner we can get going, the better. You know, we have a lot to do to heal humanity.
The good news, though, is that, you know, for a lot of people, the list of major changes that need to be made is so big it just freezes them. What I think is important for everybody to realize, it's kind of like doing this type of healing work is like having a nice bath or shower after getting all dirty, working all day in the garden. You're all hot and sweaty and nasty, and you feel coated and stuff, and you think, oh man, a shower is going to feel good. And then you feel lighter and cleaner and more open and alive because you're just fresh again. And I think if people thought about, you know, it's like doing a detoxification process. It can be uncomfortable, it can be stinky, but when you finish it, you feel like, wow, I'm really glad I did that. And I think if people were more aware of the fact that it's kind of like, you know, we go to a dentist to get a cavity taken out of our mouth because leaving it in can poison our whole body. And so if we looked at our personal work, taking a nice shower or pulling out the rot and knowing that we're going to feel lighter and better, then it wouldn't be, I don't think so, there wouldn't be such a big angst about it.
Yes, and you mentioned people getting overwhelmed or not knowing where to start, and I always coach people to start as small as they need, but just start, because so the definition of hope that was shared with me is that hope is faith in, you know, that vision or that goal you have, in a new and better world that we have. It's faith in action, and it's the
Sure, yeah.
action that creates the hope. And even if you start really, really small, just one little thing, you feel overwhelmed. There's just so many places that need help. You don't have time. You don't have, you know, you just don't know what to do. Just make one $5 donation to your favorite charity or something that speaks to you today. Just one little thing, because it's empowering to do something, just some little action, and it opens you up to more ideas, and you will feel more surety in what your next action would be. But when you sit on the couch and try and analyze, oh, there's just so much. And it's just, what could I possibly do? I'm just one person and I don't know where to start. It's just a mess. When you sit and try and analyze it, well, that's getting back into your heart. You just said between your head and your heart. When you're trying to analyze it, you'll stay stuck and disempowered. And
Yeah, paralysis by
yeah,
analysis.
and hopeless. You know, hope's created in action.
Yeah. Yes, there was something that I wanted to share, and it's one of those things that went in and went out. But if it's important, I trust it'll come back. Well, you know, we're talking about a lot of deep healing in the issues of the world. And for as long as historical records go back, there's been perpetual strife in the world. Even religious scriptures speak of wars between gods. In the King James Bible, Isaiah 45:7 states, I create the light and dark, good and evil. I, the Lord, do all these things, which the Bible, by the way, in the last 30 years or so, they began changing that verse. So it didn't say that, because I think there's a lot of people that don't want to face that level of truth. So my question is, Cynthia, what do you feel the purpose of the darkness and the evil in the world is?
So, again, I'm going to share some things that people disagree with or is counter religious beliefs and everything. But I have been told that that is not something God has said or would say, because they are love and light. They did not create evil for us to have this experience. And one of my biggest learnings, very frustrating actually, that I've had since I've been so in tune and guided, one of my biggest lessons has been, well, what do you mean everything doesn't happen for a reason? You didn't force this or create this horrible situation for me to pull a lesson out of. Now, to be clear, there's always a lesson there and a learning and a growth opportunity for sure. Anything that happens, we can find growth in. But God didn't necessarily create it. Most of what we struggle with is made by human choice, and what we refer to as evil, think of as the bad and evil in the world, is created by the really heavy, dark, toxic emotions that we are still stuck in, uh, rather than the love and the light. The unpleasant emotions that we don't want to be feeling are the ones that linger. They have a lower vibration. They can get stuck in your body and cause disease. They can get stuck in your auric layer and just make you feel heavy forever because they're not going away. And it causes a lot of the dysfunction and what we think of as evil or horrible things that people do. Sometimes it's not even I'm going to get really esoteric now, but sometimes it's not even
It's okay.
from this lifetime. We have these deeply embedded emotional trauma from a past life that causes psychosis and something like a serial killer. So, God didn't create that so we could experience evil. It just is, because we have these dark, heavy emotions that we need to evolve past.
It makes me curious. What is your definition of God?
Love and light, uh, in all things. God is light energy, and in all of us, in everything, creator of all things. Um, some people call them source, but it's all light. And, I was relieved to hear this. There is no hell or devil or, an anti Christ or anti, evil something that is causing all of this. We just need to move beyond the really heavy emotions so that we can live in resonance with unconditional love. And that doesn't mean having free choice, that humans won't still choose wrongly sometimes, but it won't be killing other people. Talk about, you know, uh, against God. We're supposed to love each other, and human life is precious. So if we are moving past the greed and the anger and the hate and able to resonate in higher frequencies of love, we won't be experiencing all of that. There'll still be angst, there'd still be hiccups in the road, disagreements or disappointments, but not, what we think of as evil right now, not the killing and the wars and, just I don't even want to start listing things. There's a lot.
Yeah. So if I understand your God view, you're saying that we need to become more like God through love and positive connection to each other or positive relationships with each other, less the opposite of that.
Well, I mean, we would be closer and more like God if we're, in a higher vibration and resonating with love as opposed to some of the darker emotions. But we're still, having our human experience. It does, as you raise your frequency, though, it does take us closer. We still have a long way to go, but a little bit closer to the frequency of divinity, which is very, very high. So this is why, as our frequency rises, it becomes easier to connect and, channel, receive messages, because it's easier for them to communicate with us in the higher frequencies. This is why, if you've heard, or I know you have, but if your listeners have heard of the Akashic field and Akashic
Sure.
records,
Yeah.
that's in a very high frequency that divinity operates at. And so, when you go into the Akashic field, the channeling is much more clear because of the frequency that you're in.
Hi, everybody. My family and I love Organifi's green juices. You can get your green juice in two excellent flavors, crisp apple and original mint. Not only are these products made with certified organic ingredients to support your family's nutritional needs, they each have some unique benefits. Your green juice crisp apple eases stress with an effective dose of 600 milligrams of ashwagandha per serving. Helps reduce cortisol spikes that increase snacking urges and aids keeping your blood sugar balanced. Why snack on inferior foods that lack nutrition and often lead to blood sugar spikes followed by blood sugar crashes when Organifi's green juices are super healthy, taste great, and are as quick to make as opening the package and adding water. Your green juice crisp apple is made from fresh apples picked right off the branch and are packed with micronutrients to support your body's needs. Green juice original mint contains ashwagandha, chlorella, and spirulina. Reset your body every morning with 11 detoxifying superfoods. You'll love the delicious taste, and your body will feel strong and stable with all the micronutrients in each serving. Green juice original mint promotes balanced cortisol and stress levels, perfect for weight management, and helps rid the body of harmful toxins. Personally, I'm super grateful that Organifi makes such excellent, easy-to-use drinks and foods that keep us energized, healthy, and clean inside while decreasing the urge to crave on inferior snack foods. My kids love both flavors, and I love knowing that we can all be healthy together with Organifi's excellent crisp apple and original mint green juices. These products are excellent for work, on the road, sharing with friends, and anytime you need a nutritious boost that tastes good. To get your crisp apple and original mint green juices, go to organifi.com/Chek20. That's organifi.com/Chek20. Save 20% on your purchase using the code Chek20, all caps, on checkout. Don't worry if you forget your Living 4D discount code, because you'll see it right there on the landing page. Enjoy Organifi's excellent green juices. It is a reality, though. I mean, I've been a therapist for 41 years, so I've dealt with a lot of crisis and pain in people's lives. I would venture to bet that more people have their first or multiple enlightenment experiences as a result of something very, very challenging in their life. The loss of somebody they love, or a death of a friend or a trauma, be it a car accident that really caused a lot of pain and pushed them deeply into themselves, and a long list of things. Rumi says the function of a broken heart is to let your love pour out. So sometimes, paradoxically, what we initially think of as dark or even evil turns out to be just what it took to crack us open to our divinity. So I think there is sometimes a bit of a magical mystery going on behind, and we can't really see the deeper truths of what we might have once thought was dark or evil until we've reached a level of development where we can actually see it in context.
Um, well, I'd like to think that it definitely does lead people that way. It can be a real enlightening experience. We hear a lot of that happening to people, but I don't believe it's necessary. Of course, but we'll still experience pain. There will be loved ones lost. That there will be grief. The We're not going to evolve to the point where we're not emotional and have the ups and downs. We just won't be trapped in the heavy hate, the stuff that creates wars, or the real violence in the world. I don't think that it's well, it's not necessary. And we can connect and have a spiritual awakening when we have a very positive experience and happy life, actually more easily if you're at a higher frequency. And it we're not there yet for a lot of people, and whatever gets us there is great. But I would love to get to the point where more people can get there and feel really connected without a trauma pushing them in that direction.
I think this backtracks to one of the big problems we have, which is, if you study tribal societies, the elders were very, very important in the development of the tribes. Typically, in tribal societies, they did the hunting and gathering starting early in the morning, and it took the average hunter-gatherer society 3.5 to 4 hours to meet its needs. And while the parents were out doing hunting and gathering, the grandparents and elders were educating the children and teaching them the myths of the tribe, arts and crafts, and basically helping them embody the mythology of the tribe. But the wisest people and the most experienced people in the tribe were the ones tasked with raising the children until they made it through their initiation into adulthood, which for women was typically giving birth, and for men it was an initiation process. But we don't really have that kind of depth of wisdom and leadership from elders in our culture worldwide at large. So it's like we've lost the wisest people that would guide us in a way that would help us not make the kinds of mistakes that lead to what turns out to often be the source of traumas or even gets labeled as evil. But oftentimes it's really the side effect of ignorance, that we could have been educated so that we didn't fall into those traps. And I think that's part of the shift we've got to make in the world, is to reestablish the wisdom of the elders, and also make sure that the elders that are in that position actually have done the development of being wise, not just being a child in an old person's body.
I was just thinking to myself, well, just because they're old doesn't mean they're wise. Yes, absolutely.
Well,
Yes.
yes.
I actually, just today, I was reminded that wisdom comes from our connection with spirit. And you can be young and wise or old and foolish. But I agree with you. I've actually been told that I'm not, retirement's not a thing, and I'm not allowed to retire ever. And I don't want to. I don't want to. It just feels like that thing when you get to a certain age. Well, it's what we have to do, or it's what people do. I'm not. But it, we need to shift our perspective as a culture in valuing our elders, yes, and removing the toxicity that's causing so much dementia and Alzheimer's, because they should be able to contribute to society still. And it is toxicity that's making those later years just, like revisiting childhood. Um, and it's not necessary, but it's the world we've created that we need to clean up. So I do think we will get to the point that reincorporates our elders into society in really instrumental ways, because look at all the growth and evolving we can do by the time we're ancient. I'm just getting started. So, yeah, there's just so much there. And we are meant, that's another thing, overhauling the education systems. It shouldn't just stop or be, at 18. We should be learning our entire lives. And it shouldn't be something that's just available to people of means. We should be able to explore and learn and develop our gifts or talents or interests, whatever they are, our entire life.
I think one of the things that is a problem worldwide today, largely due to the westernization of the rest of the world, is that we've developed this sort of industrialized treadmill, and people either have been convinced by parents or educators or themselves that they've got to do what they've got to do to make money instead of doing what they love to do. And so when you do what you got to do to make money, you're just in labor all the time, and that's not sustainable. But following your heart and letting your inner genius guide you to the fulfillment of your unique role in the world, that is something that I find. I'll be 64 in a couple of months here, and I've been very passionate about my work for 41 years, and I'm still as excited and committed to it and deep in my studies and growth as a professional as I was when I was 21 and I started my career. So my point is, I think that we really have to, especially parents and elders, need to inspire people to listen more to their heart and let their love guide them in their exploration. And then when their life path emerges, it'll be clear to them that, that's what this was all for. That's why I once was a bead maker, and I once worked in a butcher shop, and then I worked in a gardening facility, and then because I needed all those skills to be this person, and now I love this. And so one of the exercises I give my patients when they come to see me, and people getting life coaching from me, and they say that they really don't know what they want to do in their life, I say, well, I'll give you an exercise. Pretend you had just gotten arrested and you were sentenced to life in prison. Except this is a special prison. It's a profitable prison, and everybody works. So on the first day you go to prison, you get taken to the prison warden, and the warden says to you, I'm the warden, and in this prison you have to work because we make a profit so that you can have a better stay and get education and be supported. The one thing that you have to decide is what you want to do each day, 8 hours a day, and you get to choose anything you want. If you want to garden, then we'll set that up. If you want to build cars, we'll set that up. If you want to stamp license plate, we've got that. If you want to be a painter, a quilt maker, it's your job, but make sure you choose wisely because you only get one choice and you have to do it for the next 30 years. So I say to my patients, if you looked inside your heart right now and said, what is it that I could do for the next 30 years and giggle and laugh while I was in prison? that's probably pretty close to what you're here to do.
I love it. Yes, follow your heart. Well, I like to share with people looking for a purpose as well. Obviously, connect with your guidance, but also remember that your purpose may not be how you make money. And by all means, whatever you do to make money, it should bring you joy. But that may not be your purpose. It may be outside of work. Um, so
If you have that, though, then you know your work is the fuel that allows you to live that
That's
purpose.
right.
Then your work is not a labor of disdain or the thing that you have to do. It's the thing you choose to do to empower your.
And I think we went down this road because we were talking about elders, and absolutely, if you're doing a job that you just can't wait to get out of, you would want to quote unquote retire. But there's a different mentality if you just see it as a new chapter or your next chapter. You don't have to do that job anymore, but you get to do, as you say, anything you want. It doesn't mean you go like not have a usefulness in the world anymore. You will have a purpose. It can just be something different now.
If you have listened to even one episode of Paul's podcast before, then you will know that he is passionate, and some would say even fanatical, about the quality of the food he eats and where it is sourced from. That is why the Chek household only eats pasture-raised meat, wild-caught fish, and organic produce. And that is why we subscribe to Wild Pasture's meat delivery service. Each month, Wild Pastures delivers a box of meat that has been raised by family farmers in the USA using regenerative farming practices. 100% grass-fed and finished beef, pasture-raised chicken, and pasture-raised pork, as well as wild-caught seafood. You can customize the selection in your box, add on extra when you know you will be feeding more people, or change your options each and every month. You might be thinking that this will be too expensive for you, but Wild Pasture's mission is to offer the highest quality meat at the lowest prices because they want to transform the meat industry. And that means that more people need to be able to choose meat that is raised right. Their pasture-raised animals are part of a natural ecosystem. Their farmers use rotational grazing, practices that mimic nature, and so do not need to use synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, hormones, or antibiotics. This beautiful process doesn't require the external resources, such as massive amounts of GMO grain, required with environmentally depleting conventional methods. And best of all, the meat and fish taste amazing. And for Paul's listeners, Wild Pastures are offering you 20% off your subscription for life, $15 off your first order, and free shipping. Seriously, you can't find a better deal for top quality pasture-raised meat. Go to wildpastures.com/Paul Chek. You don't need a promo code. Just visit wildpastures.com/Paul Chek and start choosing the goodies you will have delivered to you in your first box.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Cynthia, a lot of the toxicity, damage, and degeneration of human health and the health of all the beings of nature seems to result from humanity's attempt to create technologies to make life easier. We are the most entertained, distracted, unhealthy, confused, and potentially poorly educated with regard to what matters most people that have ever inhabited the earth. Cynthia, where do you feel we've gone wrong with the kinds of technologies we are using, and what should we be focusing on to bring ourselves into harmony with ourselves and nature or the planet as a whole?
Well, I don't think there's any technology as far as what we use individually. I mean, there's industries that are toxic and bad and need to go away with the carbon emissions and everything. But if we look at, the technologies we use, the issue isn't that it's there and that it's wrong, but just how much we may buffer and hide from the world in it instead of being, we are goal creators. We're creators. We're made in God's image, and we're meant to go after goals, and we are happiest when we're working towards something and being productive. So to have these escapes, to binge watch TV or gaming or, whatever the technology.
Social media.
Oh, exactly. Scroll social. It's an escape, and everything in moderation is absolutely fine. And we need that little unplug time. Okay, I've been thinking hard all day. I just need to not think for a while and go veg out.
Yeah, yeah. Let go of the
Yeah,
world.
but so I think the issue and the trouble we have is just the excessive amounts and the way people use, whether it's technology or other addictions, using it to escape life rather than taking proactive steps toward creating anything that's going to jazz you up and get you going and get you off the couch. So as far as bringing us back into harmony, there's no technology that would do that. It's getting away from the technology, not giving it up for good, but taking an hour every week to go walk in nature or be connected in nature. And I say an hour because that may sound like a lot to people. If you can go every day, great. But that's where we connect. Well, first of all, it is all of God's creation, but you can't go into nature and not feel more connected with spirit. So it's getting away from the technology that helps us come back to center and who we are and harmony with the planet and each other. And again, it doesn't mean we have to go cold turkey and walk away from all the technology that we've become, used to. And it can be a really useful tool.
I tell people a phone makes a better tool than a master. If your
Ah,
phone becomes your master, you're in
that's great.
trouble.
Yes.
In other words, we all technologies have a potential application, but we've got to be careful that we don't get on the wrong side of the application.
Yes. Absolutely. That's it. Everything in moderation.
Cynthia, studies show that 85% of the world population claims religious affiliation. The biggest religions are Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. These religions are generally portray humanity as fallen, sinful, and have language that makes the body dirty and the earth a place of punishment rather than being a natural paradise that it could be if we would awaken to the blessings of being human and being spiritual beings having a human experience on earth. From a psychological perspective, many great psychologists like Carl Jung and philosophers like Ken Wilber have made it very clear, and research supports this, that approximately 70% of the world population is still in this child stage of development or the child archetype. We can see the results of this in the fact that so many people adhere to or believe the religious dogmas they've been indoctrinated with. The conscious or unconscious consequences is, for many, a negative relationship with their body, sex, pleasure, and the planet as a whole. So, what are your thoughts in this regard? And so there's a two-part question I'm asking you. How can we facilitate growth into adulthood and acceptance of adult responsibilities for ourselves, each other, and the world, and inspire the people of the world to dream bigger together and create an empowering earth-centered myth that brings us into harmony with ourselves, each other, and helps us envision a wholesome future together? So you can two pieces anyway, how you want.
Okay. I think the best way to facilitate growth in all people into our next evolution is starting, I mean, obviously connecting with their inner guidance, but also teaching them to become aware and recognize the instinctual programs, the survival mechanisms that we have built into us that keep us trapped and stuck and fighting other people, fighting so desperately for those beliefs that we just have to hang on to, even though they're just beliefs. They're not
And they're
truth,
not serving
and they're
us.
not serving us. Exactly right. So when we recognize that that's what that is, that that's what's coming up for us, then we can move through it, because it's choice. But it's breaking habits and noticing what's going on, noticing our habit of, allowing ourselves to be stuck in fear and not take action, or, to argue our point and not listen to the other person because we want to be right.
Or not even to look deeply into our own point to see if it really serves us or resonates in our heart. Because programming is typically automatic. It runs all by itself. And the pain teacher often shows up to say, hey, maybe you should evaluate this, but the tendency is to project that onto the other and make them wrong instead of coming back inside and saying, well, is that really belief really serving me or even my family or my friends or my
Right.
people?
Exactly. And so when we become aware that that's what's going on, that's 9/10 of the battle, I think. But you have to recognize it first. And if you look for it, you will recognize it, and then you can choose differently. And of course, you can ask for guidance and choose differently as well.
Well, I think if I could just interject there, Cynthia, I think that's where elders are so important because they have the wisdom and the depth to recognize and they can see things preemptively. They can see a behavior because they've already lived through it. So they know, oh, that leads to that, leads to that. So the dominoes move in that direction. So let's talk about this before the domino
Right.
crashes.
Right. Yes, that would be very helpful. If then, people were willing to listen to their elders, which is a whole
Well,
other.
yes, that's part of the cultural
Right.
breakdown that I was speaking
Right.
about earlier.
Exactly. Um, so as far as dreaming bigger, I think it's a matter. I think people are afraid to dream because they're afraid of change. And that goes back to point A, talking about facilitating growth and getting out of these subconscious instinctual survival mechanisms that are keeping us stuck. Fear comes up when we think about anything that's new or different, and yet change is always happening. We can't prevent change. All we can do is work with it and create the change we want, create something better and intentional rather than letting things sweep us away and go in a direction we don't want to go in. So I think, learning again to work with the fear and moving past it. And the best way, I keep going back to this, but the best way is to tune into your guidance because I feel really strongly, and this happened for me. I think I spoke earlier about how I was a chicken. I mean, in some ways, I didn't want. I remember years ago, I wanted to start creating videos, and I just had such a fear of getting on camera, even though I love to speak in front of real groups. Makes absolute. You would think it'd be easier because a recording you can just delete.
Yes.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
silliness, but I had a real fear. It was something new and different, I guess. I don't know, but it,
Mm-hmm.
you can move past those fears when you're being guided, in the path you need to go on, and it is the path you need to take. The fear goes away. It really does. I think that, and working on self-love, but again, if you recognize that divinity's within you and you are love and you have their love, why wouldn't you love yourself? You know? And self love is definitely a way to buoy yourself up and get up to big things as well.
I think too, if you because I have over 63,000 students worldwide. So I'm constantly having people come to me and saying, Paul, I'm afraid to talk about this or that or do a video. And I say, look, instead of seeing a camera there, see a window and imagine that on the other side of the window is all the children that you want to inspire. Because if you know more about diet and lifestyle than they do, no matter what age they are, you're like the mommy and a daddy, and they're like the kids. Now they could be a genius at finance or be a pilot, but you're not teaching them how to invest money or be a pilot. You're teaching them how to do what you're really good at. And if they're in resonance with you, they will listen to you because they know they need that guidance and they'll feel it. So it's just, my point is, if we share our love with the intention of knowing that it will be received by those that need that form of love, then there's really no fear for sharing. And that seems to help people kind of look through the window.
It's well, I think it's different for everybody, but we all have those things that we feel like it's really keeping us stuck, and it's this big overwhelming fear or paralysis, or gee, I really wanted to do that thing, but who am I to do it? Who am I to do whatever? And what I will throw back is, well, why not you? Somebody's got to do it. And
I call that your growth edge.
yes,
That's where your growth opportunity is, right?
That's right.
And most people's fears are manufactured. I ask people all the time, of all the fears that you have from day to day that make you nervous and anxious and stop you from doing things, how many of them actually turned out to be true? And most people say about 98% of them weren't true. I said, so look how much of your life you lost empowering fear. If you have water, safety, shelter, warmth, breath, and love, you're okay.
Absolutely. And again, we go back to our survival instincts, but that's different. I know it can't hurt me, but it's different. So I have fear, and I go into freeze response anyway. So I think, if we can teach people how to move past that and move past the fear, we will dream bigger.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
certainly when you connect with your guidance, you will be taking action and being inspired and more hopeful and dream bigger, have hope because you're starting to take action.
If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you've probably heard Paul raving about one of his absolute go-to supplements, P3OM from Bioptimizers. Well, they've given it a new name, Probiotic Breakthrough. It's the same amazing formulation, just with a new name. Here's a chat that Paul and Wayne had about Probiotic Breakthrough before it changed its name.
Bioptimizers makes an amazing product called P3OM, which is a prebiotic product. And it's amazing for not only helping repopulate the gut with friendly bacteria, but as Wade will tell you, it's really, really an amazing product in case you ever feel like you're getting any kind of food poisoning or illness coming on. And Wade's right here with me, and he's the co-founder of Bioptimizers, and he knows more about P3OM than anybody. But I can tell you this, I've had nothing but excellent results and nothing but positive feedback from all my clients and friends that I've turned on to P3OM. So Wade, tell us a little bit about P3OM and why it works so well.
Well, P3OM we call it the Navy SEAL of probiotics.
Amen.
Basically, its job is to kick out the bad guys in your body. Food poisoning is one of those things from bad bacteria. What we've done is we've taken an aggressive strain of L. plantarum. We put it into toxic soup, ran a sine wave to keep a few of them alive. And the few survivors, we grow in very specialized medium to make a cultured, patented enzyme that has extraordinary powers. Number one, it survives the intestinal tract.
Yes.
And number two, it absolutely hunts down pathogens in the body, bacteria, viruses, these type of things. And this is really where the future of probiotics is. It is about developing and culturing and creating super strains of probiotic, very much like the Navy SEALs go through a training, and these individuals have extraordinary powers to deal with chaos. And in today's world where we want to improve our immunity and our function and our gut health, P3OM is head and shoulders above any probiotic out there.
So my understanding is it can be used daily as a supplement, but it can also be used in larger quantities as a defense measure.
We've tested this literally with over 100 of our friends who have been suffering from various times of food poisoning. And a handful of those guys, when you're in food poisoning, and within 20 to 30 minutes, you complete recovery.
That's awesome. And I've seen it happen myself. Angie has felt bad a number of times, and several of people in the house or family have. And I say, take 10. If that doesn't feel good in an hour, take 20. And you've told me you can't overdose on them, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's the beauty of P3M. You can't take too much. They'll fight off the bad guys, and they'll get your digestion rocking and rolling the way it should.
So if you want to have a healthy gut and you want some defense, carry P3OM with you wherever you go, airplanes, cars, business meetings, hotels, conferences, and you've got your Navy SEALs in the bottle, and they're ready for you anytime.
Spirit Gym with Paul Chek listeners can get 10% off their purchase of Probiotic Breakthrough by Bioptimizers by going to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and using the code PAUL10 at checkout. You can choose from 3 different sizes, and in addition, Bioptimizers always have special bonus gifts and additional savings when you get multiple bottles. So head over to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and check out Probiotic Breakthrough with your PAUL10 promo code.
Yeah, very good. Cynthia, a large percentage of the world population that believes in God conceives of a God that is out there somewhere, that is above and disconnected from its creation, including us and the planet. Yet those that have had genuine mystical experiences of union with God, unconditional love, become aware that we are all capable of being co-creators with God and engage a deep personal love-based relationship with God. What suggestions can you offer to support people in a deeper realization of God that inspires them to step into their role as a co-creator with God? And how would that alone change the world if we could do that?
Well, that's just that right there. That's the whole concept, I think, of what that was behind my book and fueled it, because, it's written with a spiritual lens. The book wasn't intended originally to be spiritual, but in order to do all these things, connecting with divinity is how we're going to do it, how we're going to co-create this better world.
Getting past the idea that God is some perfect disconnected being and we're these little things down here. But then I was mentioning the fact that people that have had mystical experiences realize God is unconditional love, and then they realize they can co-create with God instead of having some sort of separation from. And I think when you realize you're co-creating with God, then you have the power of love in you. It exudes from you, and it propels you through fear, because you see beyond the fear because you're anchored in this experience of what's really going on.
Yes, absolutely. I guess the only thing I would add to that, if you're talking to people who see God as not connected, to go back to one of the first things I mentioned of, well, can you just be open? What if? Just sit with it. What if they're there? Check in,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
go internally, because you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So if you don't believe, again, anything I say, it's not going to hurt anything to try it anyway. And you could gain a whole lot from the experience. So that's what do you have to lose, I guess, is my analysis of that. Yeah.
Well, you actually triggered me to want to share something quite interesting and potentially profound, that your what if bringing me to want to share this. If you study the world's religions, which I have very deeply, they're really a collection of myths. They're often concretized as something other than a myth. But one of the things that struck me deeply in my studies of Ken Wilber's teaching, which I've been studying for about 25 or 30 years, because there's a lot of it, in his discussions on myth, he says the way that you handle a myth is use the words as if. So it's as if God said, I am an angry and a jealous God, worship no other God but me. So if you use the word as if, these things go out of the realm of the concrete into metaphor and into allegory, so that we can look deeper into these teachings instead of getting trapped by them as concrete revelations. And I remind people, everything that's written down in any scripture came through the hands of a human being.
Yes, that's right.
So, we've never seen pens writing all by themselves with a voice saying, this is God writing your stuff. I think when we're looking at any of these scriptures, if we put the as if, it's as if this happened. It's as if, and then what happens is we see how people have lived and what got them in trouble and what gave them love and freedom. And so then we can kind of take a higher viewpoint than getting too down low and having our nose up against the page. Joseph Campbell said something very profound. He said, whenever you read the Bible as a dictation instead of a connotation, you are in trouble. And I think that stems right back to the need for elders that have the ability to tell us what an as if is, as opposed to it is.
Yeah. Well, and I will add to that again. Nobody listened to me, or listen. You don't have to believe me, but I would add to that. And what if it was not meant to be a lesson because someone, was trying to get a point across at the time that's not really relevant to us now. There's there's a lot in the holy books that are just distortions, and I mean,
outdated software.
You need to update the software. I do believe that the major religions originally started with very clear, what I would call channels now. Those prophets were crystal clear and were meant to and did share God's word, God's love. And again, spiritual marketing, it looked different in the different religions because of the cultures it was shared in and the times it was shared in. They all look different, but there's a golden nugget you can see in all of it that really was God's word, God's love that they wanted to share. But then so much of that other stuff was created by men who wrote about it and wanted to subjugate women and wanted to have authority and wealth given to them because they were the church elders and everything. And so much of it was just
business, corporate religion.
But yeah, business. And yet, there is that truth there. If we just go back to the golden nugget, which is love. God is love. God's in us.
There's another golden nugget that transcends generations and millennia, and that is the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so there's a piece of software that transcends generations, transcends millennia, because it'll always be true. And I think if we want to get into religious scriptures for guidance, we have to look for the nuggets of gold that transcend time and generation, and they're always true. And I think that those are always things that are very interesting to me as a person, is to find those things.
And that are the different religions share. Because I like to say,
because you can find them.
I like to say they're more alike than they're different. If you look at that base that started it all, before all of the layers of the dogma, and you should do this and you should do that, and you need to listen to the pontiff in the pulpit. Before all of that, there were these similarities, which is the truth that would resonate with everyone, I think.
Yes. Water's always wet, no matter what generation you're in. And I have a beautiful book in my library I bet you'd love. It's called The Parallel Sayings of Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and Lao Tzu. And it's a good 230 pages, and it goes by topic like love or respect, or, there's a whole series, probably 25 chapters, but they take exactly the scripture statements by Krishna, Jesus, Buddha, and Lao Tzu, and they show what they said on these topics, and they're almost identical.
I love that.
Yet people will go to war over
Yes.
that, saying that it's
Yes.
different.
Yes, and it doesn't need to be. It was all about love and loving each other, which we're not doing very well with all the wars. Yeah. I love that. That does sound like a great book.
I can't remember the author's name right now because I have a lot of books and sometimes they slip, but you'll find it on Amazon, The Parallel Sayings of Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, and Lao Tzu. I think it might be William Hooper, if I remember right, but there's actually two books with very similar titles, and they both show the same thing. And it's the same, it's just a collection by two different authors, but they're both, I've read them both, and they both make it very, very clear that the actual core messages of all the religions is pretty universal. It's just us that gets in the way of it. Cynthia, you state spirituality is your personal relationship with the divine, which requires two-way communication. Can you share ways someone can begin to cultivate a genuine two-way relationship with the divine?
I would love to, if I can have a minute, because I learned this great tool that a lot of people have heard of or use, but it's really overlooked a lot. It was so powerful for me to quickly up-level my claircognizance, and it's available to everybody. Well, let me preface this. We can't, because of the expansion of the frequencies, if your frequency isn't at 1 million or above bioenergy units, you're not going to be able to clearly connect with divinity. But your frequency wants to rise, and those higher frequencies are available to everyone. So I'll just preface with that. So the tool that I came across first, and this just started everything for me, is from kinesiology. And it's called the sway test, muscle testing.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Where we use the body like a pendulum. Now, I have been told, some people use other types of kinesiology, or they like to use a pendulum to try and connect with spirit. It's not as effective. So I just recommend this particular technique as the one to get used to and use. So it's called the muscle test or sway test, and you use your body like a pendulum. And what this does, I didn't realize when I started, it developed my clairsentience. That feeling that you're looking for is communication from divinity sending you sensations, which is clairsentience. You're channeling when this works for you, and it's available to everyone. But if you do it and your frequency isn't high enough, you'll be connecting with your subconscious, which knows a lot as well. So you can play with it that way. That's how it was originally developed, to connect with your subconscious and learn things. So you want to and actually, I won't get into the detail of it, but I do have a free resource I will share, a video training, if that's all right, because it is so simple. And when you learn this technique, my best advice is be curious about everything, ask questions about everything. Now, it has to be, for the technique, it has to be yes/no questions. Or statements are even better instead of questions. If you just make a statement like, my name is Cynthia Rivard, I should get a sway forward, or just a sensation in my body. It may not be a sway, but just a tug. I'll feel something. And that's either your subconscious, or if you set the intention, if you have a frequency at 1 million or above, and you just set the intention before you start, and say out loud and then silently, I intend to connect with my higher self or my divine aspect. and communicate through all levels of my consciousness and just make a statement then and allow them to answer it with that sway. That is when you're connecting with your higher self. That is clairsentience. Now,
What would be a no, though? I just don't want people to get lost, because so far we get a sway, but how do we know if it's a yes or a
so
no?
your body, your subconscious will automatically take you towards something positive or a yes response,
So it's a forward
and then
lean.
backward for a no or something negative. And so you'll get that tug or a sway for a yes or a no, a positive or a negative. But you want to just test it first with questions you know the answer to make sure it's working for you. Like, my name is
Right.
Mickey Mouse. I should get a backward sway.
Right. Yep. And when you're talking about these consciousness units, if I heard you right, you're using a scale I don't think anybody would know unless they've studied with you. How can we put that into more of a contextual statement? For example, David Hawkins has a scale in power versus force where 1,000 would be the top of the scale, and somebody that's really unconscious would be, below 200, for example. Um, can you put that into more context for
So
us?
I will. So if you're familiar with his scale, it's the same thing, but the frequencies expanded a couple of years ago. So the scale now tops out at 50 billion, as opposed to, I think it was 1,000 was enlightenment or divinity, the top of the scale. Um, so eh, there are just these expansive frequencies now that we can get to. And the highest ascension point for the majority of people on the planet is 500 million. But we're coming from a scale that used to top out at, really realistically, say 700 for a human. So there are these new frequencies available, and our frequency wants to rise, but quite often people they have trapped emotions, which will keep their frequency stuck. That's the number one thing that'll keep it down. And then the other thing would be not being in a higher frequency environment or with people of a higher frequency. When it rises so much, you'll get to the point where it needs a little help. Being out in nature, the frequency's 1,000,000 in nature. So that's a huge help to get started. Um, but going back to, and actually, that the swag technique is how I teach people to measure their frequency. You can ask the question,
Oh,
you
okay.
know,
Because you did say you want to be at 1,000,000 before you do this. So I'm just curious, how would someone know whether they need to upregulate
so
before they do it?
your subconscious knows your frequency. So you can use this technique and connect with your
To
subconscious
measure it?
to measure your frequency. And when it gets to 1,000,000, you can intentionally state that you're intending to connect with your, whatever you call it, higher self or inner wisdom. And if you're not sure that you're connected, you can ask, because your subconscious will tell you. You could just say, I'm connected with my subconscious. And, you'll get a no if that's not the case. Or,
Well, if somebody tested themselves, let's say they tested out at 500,000, but they want to get to 1,000,000 to do this kind of connection, what are some suggestions for raising their vibration
nature,
that they could use
get
immediately?
out in
So what,
nature.
what if they're in the middle of Manhattan, though?
Well, there's parks. Even if you can't get into nature for an hour a week, anything's better than nothing, and it will help. It will help. I mean, if you're around someone that already has a high frequency, that will help as well. But the easiest and most accessible for most people is to get into nature whenever you can. The other thing, horses and cows and donkeys have a high frequency of, is it 500 million? So if you are interacting with one of those animals, that will help raise your frequency as well.
Whether you're a fitness professional, healthcare specialist, or just a regular human being, I'm sure you've seen this. Someone who seems to be training hard and eating right, and yet they still can't shift those excess pounds, build muscle, or make progress on their health goals. It's like they're trapped in a hamster's wheel, running on the spot and getting nowhere, stuck in their stress, pain, and bewilderment about why they're not getting the results they think they should. The problem? Most people are only considering one or two aspects of health and wellness, and yet the human body is a complex system of systems. That's why the Chek Institute created the Chek Academy, a complete education in holistic health, exercise, and lifestyle coaching. If you're ready to make the leap into a new career, or perhaps seeking more advanced skills to enhance your current work, the Chek Academy is the path. In year 1, you'll go deep into holistic lifestyle coaching level 1, integrated movement science level 1, our new scientific core conditioning course, and much more, learning how to really help yourself and others thrive. You can study from your own home or join the Chek faculty at locations around the world for a combination of online and in-person courses. Enrollment is open now, but spaces are limited and the spots do fill up quickly. Head to chek.group/Chek Academy and submit your application before September the 30th. That's chek.group/CHEK Academy.
One thing that I use to raise my frequency and teach my students and patients and clients to do that I think you might find very useful and simple and helpful. So just have them place one hand over their heart. And I say, pay attention to how that feels when your left hand's over your heart. Then put your right hand over your heart. And you'll notice one of them creates more of a grounding and centering effect. Whichever one that was, put it over your heart, put the other one over your heart. Now, as you inhale, breathe, imagine you're breathing God's unconditional love into your heart and filling your heart with it. And as you exhale, say, I give God's unconditional love to all beings in all places, in all times, in all dimensions. And after a few minutes of breathing unconditional love, I find it takes people's vibration very high. It takes mine very, very high. That's what I do before I connect to my higher self or my soul. So I make sure that I become unattractive to negativity.
Beautiful. I'm trying to think. I think I had something else I wanted to share on that, but we did.
Yeah. You were talking about ways to raise your vibration.
Well, that got a little bit off on a side note. Connecting with your inner wisdom, the tool will help you develop clairsentience was where I started with that. And then
with the rocking.
Right. And then the super ninja hack, and everyone I've shared this with, I don't think most of them use it this way, but when you're first developing your clairsentience, so you're knowing, you get an idea and you wonder, well, is this my monkey mind or is this divine guidance coming in? Should I listen? You can use then the sway test, your clairsentience, to validate. And it helps it develop, and your trust in your claircognizance, which is what you really want, the knowing, it helps it develop so much more quickly because you've got this hack to double check. And so then you learn what it feels like when the claircognizance comes in and what your truth is. You learn what to trust because you're validating it. You don't have to worry and stress over whether it really was meant for you or whether your subconscious is taking you on a little field trip.
Right. I also know from teaching voyances to students for a very long time that we each have an innate gift of avoidance. So, you might be very clairsentient, I might be very clairvoyant, and the next guy might be claircognizant. So I tell people, work with the one you've got and use it as a gateway to open the other ones. Because oftentimes people say, well, I want to develop all of them at once. And I was like, that's probably not likely to happen because it's more opening than you can probably handle. So work, like you're saying, if the sway technique gives you clairsentience, so use the clairsentience to give you experience and trust, and then the other ones come on as you can handle the flow of information that comes through those extrasensory abilities.
That's a great point. Yes. Yes. But that ability to validate what you think you're hearing or knowing is just, I mean, it was a lifesaver for me because I did a lot of double questioning myself, you know?
Now, this next question, we have touched on some elements of it, but I'll share it with you just in case you feel inspired to share something else. You state that humanity must start by taking responsibility for our past actions and the devastation we've wreaked on the planet as a global collective. Raising consciousness will enable us to cultivate widespread compassion, creating peace and a healthy environment. So my question is, can you give us an overview of actions past and present that we need to bring more awareness to accept responsibility for making positive changes? So just kind of like we were just talking about, how do you know where you're at on the scale? You got to have a way to check in. What are some of the things we need to be more aware that we've got a bad habit of recapitulating?
Right.
And what are the things that we need to be more aware of that we can do that's positive and healing to overcome those
Right.
tendencies?
Well, what I was talking about there was more humanity as a whole, not what you as an individual may have done, you know.
Sure, but
But
a culture is a bunch of people doing the same
right.
things.
But I was talking, well, specifically about the toxicity on the planet and carbon emissions, and we've been talking about it for decades, and we continue to add to it. It's getting worse instead of better. So that was the biggie. But then, of course, there is the lack of love and compassion and helping our fellow man. You know, the constant struggles and conflict and war and violence, which we need to get away from. And we will, but there's a lot of healing, uh, which will bring that about, I think.
So would you say that that's the essential first steps to cultivate the necessary awareness is look at some of the things that we can do better now and just move forward and step forward into
Well,
that?
I'm afraid I'm a little bit of a broken record here, but as far as awareness goes, I mean, just talking about it builds awareness, and then we can help talking about it with others, you know, spread the word, because me knowing that we have a climate crisis does no good. And me talking to other people who are really passionate about saving the environment also doesn't do a whole lot of good. I need to start to talk to people in a non confrontational way who don't believe we have a crisis. You know, we need to get the word out to spread awareness, um, eh, because I don't think anyone would intentionally vote to kill the planet. You know, it's just head in the sand, you know, let's go. I've got a busy life, just a lack of awareness or, you know, misguidance because they're listening to something that was maybe a mistruth or not quite accurate. But sharing what we know is the best way to start to make an impact. You know, if you're wondering how to help a situation, share what you know, what you're passionate about, and you see that we need to help improve, talk about it, you know, because it should, if we're, you know, on this big destructive trajectory, it should be, well, nightly news, but also family dinner table and, you know, coffee, the water cooler. And, you know, it should be not a confrontational conversation, but definitely a conversation. Like, like, what do you think we could do? How could we help? You know, what does our community need? If I can't change the world, what, you know, or impact the federal government, what can we do locally?
Yes. What I encourage people to do is say, take any issue that you think's important and ask yourself, what would love do now? And then do it. The example I often give to make this point is, California, where I live, often has water shortages, and there's water shortages in various places all over the world. And I say, you don't think you can make a difference, but what if everyone that had water flushed the toilet one less time a day? If 6 billion people did one less flush of the toilet a day, each toilet flush is somewhere between 3 and 5 gallons. That's about 18 to 30 billion gallons of water by just, in California, we say if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. Now, it seems like you're not doing much, but when we all make a little effort together, big things happen.
Yeah. And when you recognize that you are doing something by doing that, that will inspire you to do more. You'll get more inspired ideas.
Sure. Yeah. The little grows itself.
That's right.
Cynthia, in the description of your new book, you state, through channeled guidance, the author expands on the real meaning and importance of the concepts of the new earth, nirvana, or heaven on earth, to each of us today, and how to manifest what has been a theoretical concept throughout history into your life now. Now, my question when I read that is the actual meaning of the word nirvana, according to Joseph Campbell and Sanskrit, is to extinguish or blow out. Can you share what you mean by nirvana or heaven on earth? Though it sounds lovely as a metaphor, the Adam and Eve stories suggest that they desired to step out of nirvana to experience the knowledge of good and evil, so they actually could be conscious. So my question is, how would you create heaven on earth now, and what do you feel will support or inhibit our spiritual growth in that direction?
Oh boy, that was a lot of questions. So
Well,
let me start.
I'm just trying to clarify. You're using nirvana in sort of a new age way, but I like to use words and for what they actually mean. And so that's my question.
Absolutely. We'll start there. So by nirvana, I was referring to what they talk about in the Buddhist and Hindu traditions as the ideal state of being, getting, to enlightenment or out of misery. So perhaps it goes with extinguishing misery.
Sure, yeah.
But that's what I meant by nirvana. I was pulling in the different world religions with these different concepts, but similar. So I believe in the Bible it talks about heaven on earth, and then in New Age culture they talk about the new earth. So we've all heard of this concept and this better time in the future, and so what I'm talking about is, well, this new next era, this next chapter of our evolution is not far off. And the first stage of it is available to us now because of the expansion in the frequencies. The frequencies, I mean, emotions are energy. And by the frequencies rising, we're going to be able to lose a lot of that heaviness that's been hanging around trapped in the collective consciousness. So there's a lot that, and we're going to be able to raise our frequency and our consciousness whenever we get intentional and strive to do it. It's available to us now. That's the first part, which would go in line with their concept of nirvana, because that's an individual experience of moving more into joy, love, inner peace.
Connection.
The other part, you look around and you think, well, but there's so much pain in the world, and it's kind of not kind of, it is a mess. The second part of the new era comes when, number one, a part of us, at least, raise our consciousness and are connected with our guidance and start taking action. It's through the actions. So the law of creation is what's at play here. It's how everything in the cosmos was created. And you have one of the precepts is aligned action taking. And we can't have this better era if we're not taking action to help co-create it with divinity. They're
Absolutely.
absolutely here with us to guide us and help. We have free choice. We can choose to ignore that guidance and, continue the suffering and the extreme weather events that just continue to get worse. Or we can, listen to our guidance and start taking action to create in our 3D reality something better. So I think a lot of the religious narratives have this viewpoint that if we were a good person or, thought positive thoughts and love and everything, we'll just be delivered to this next phase.
Yeah.
God will lift us up and pop us into another dimension.
Beam us up, Scotty.
Exactly, where we get to experience paradise. And that is a misperception. There's only one earth and it's right here, and we have to clean it up. And
Well, if we don't learn how to create and manage paradise here and we got beamed up, we'd just make a mess of it
that's
in no time.
exactly how it was explained to me. That's exactly right. We can't, divinity could intervene and clean it up, and they will help us once we take responsibility and start the ball rolling.
If mommy doesn't teach children how to clean their bedroom, mommy will clean bedrooms forever.
It's so true. We are those wayward kids that, have been playing with matches and just about to burn the place down. Yes.
Well, that brings us very nicely into my next question. Cynthia, what do you see happening on Earth in the next 1, 3, 5, and 10 years if you look into your metaphorical crystal
I love
ball?
this question. So, another one of the learning opportunities I had in working so closely with my guidance, and it was a bit of a disappointment, is that there's not really a crystal ball. It's more of possibilities and probabilities. There is a vision that is promised to us, and it will matriculate. We will get to that golden era. It is time for us to evolve, and that will happen. But the timelines, it drives me nuts because I'll receive guidance on something and then the timelines shift and or the time frames that we're working with, because humans have free choice and there are things that are constantly contributing, not to mention we've never been in these frequencies before, and that has added some complications to the speed with which things are happening. The raising of the frequencies on the planet has created a lot more than usual subconscious resistance, which is not helping because we need change and people resist change anyway. And now we're resisting it more because of all the change our subconscious is experiencing with the raising frequencies. So it's been shifting, but we will get there. The timeline is up to us. When we start helping, we'll get there quickly, or we could. It's up to us to create that time frame. I will say that again, the time frames keep shifting. I think that there will be, well, at some point, there will be a big financial crisis, more of one, a big reset, which will help equalize, I think, the wealth in the world, because we've got just a huge gap between the haves and have-nots. Don't know when that's going to happen. Probably sometime in the next year, but that keeps shifting. There's a lot of change that needs to happen. And I think if a big financial reset happens, that will set off some other changes as well. But there's a lot of change that needs to happen. In the meantime, the frequencies of the earth will continue to rise for about the next year. That's a definite. And then it'll take us another couple of years beyond that for our bodies to acclimate and stop throwing up so much subconscious resistance. So I don't know how much we will accomplish in that time frame because of the resistance. I'm definitely beating the drum, and I know there are others as well who are
Oh,
passionate.
yeah, there's a lot
Yes.
of them. Thank God.
I don't know how far we'll get in making changes, but there will be a number of additional people with raised consciousness over that time frame. And we'll just start eking our way toward making the change, being the change, and making the changes that need to be made in the world. I think that 5 to 10 years, we would most certainly be able to look around and say, I see, I see it developing. I see this beautiful era coming to fruition. It's going to be a lot of work. It won't happen, overnight or quickly. It's a lot of things that need fixed. But I think that 5 to 10 years from now, we will see evidence that it's happening.
Yeah, I think strangely, in many ways, those that are resisting many of the changes that need to happen don't realize that they're actually self-selecting themselves out of the world. For a simple example, if you continue to use a broken medical system instead of accepting responsibility for choosing high quality food, supporting real farmers, drinking clean water, getting outside and exercising, then you are going to select yourself out of the world for this transition process. If you keep using dangerous chemicals to farm with and poisoning the planet, you will self-select yourself out. So in many ways, the earth has its own feedback loop where it supports those that are supporting it, and those that don't support harmony and growth for all have to deal with the consequences of their choices. And I think that's inevitable for everyone. That's just the rule of life.
Yeah.
You can't escape reality, is what I'm
Yes.
saying.
We just need to get to the point where their choices aren't writing the narrative for all of us. Because right now,
Well, yes, that takes people like me and you to educate people, to make them awake enough to realize what's happening.
exactly. Yes.
And so fortunately here we are.
Exactly, and I so appreciate the opportunity to share all of this. It will happen, but it's not, a big new piece that I introduced in that book that I don't think most people are aware of, is that God's not going to hand it to us. We need to start taking action, and we need to do that now because we are on a bad trajectory with the environment disaster that we've created. So we need to do it quickly. We've got as much time as we need to reimagine the systems and, excuse me, to reimagine what how this new world could nurture us and support humanity. We've got as much time as we need to recreate, but we don't have time when it comes to the environment. We need to get busy because it's a mess. And the longer
Yeah, well, thank God for Make America Healthy Again. That's a real good start.
you talking about the EPA regulations and the oh,
No. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. started a movement called Make America Healthy Again. So he's working on getting chemicals out of food, banning things like glyphosate. He's even trying to stop glyphosate from being able to be manufactured. Looking into any of the links between vaccines and autism. So cleaning up, doing a cleanup job, because a lot of people are very unconscious. They don't know the difference between Kellogg's cornflakes and
yeah,
organic
yeah.
corn. So somebody has to be the elder and take responsibility for cleaning the environment, because the same companies that make those chemicals are destroying nature in a very, very vast way.
No, absolutely. There's so many toxins, and it is good. I mean, there's so many things on our shelves that they don't allow in Europe, on the
Right.
food shelves.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So it is a very good thing. Yeah, and we've got a long way to go.
Yeah. Well, Lao Tzu says, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. So
Yes.
we all got to take that step.
That's right. And if we all do it, we'll just start that wave of change, everybody.
Then it'll become cool to be healthy, cool to keep things
That's
clean,
right.
cool to share your love. So great. Well, Cynthia, great podcast, great journey. Thank you for your insights and sharing your love. Any closing comments you'd like to share as we close? Websites, resources, anything that you want to share?
Absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you. And this was a great conversation. I really appreciate being allowed to share with your audience and have this great chat with you. Let's see. I would just wrap up by going back to or highlighting a point I made about staying open to possibilities, because you just never know. And the truth is within you. Just be open, because you've never heard it doesn't mean it's not your truth. And that can go in, any area, not just things that we've shared. If you stay open, the world will just open up and the possibilities will just open up. And when you are connecting with your inner wisdom, a trick there to really move things along is be really curious. The more questions, the better, because we only get answers to the questions we ask. Be open and be curious. So that is the parting thought I'd like to leave there. And then I will share with you a free resource on measuring and lifting frequencies, as well as the new scale of human consciousness that I developed with, because of the expansion.
Wasn't there several free resources on your
There
website, if I remember right?
There are, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you might want to mention that there are, you had like 6 of them, didn't you?
Maybe 4 or 5. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
I remember seeing several
there
options.
are. So my website is cynthiarivard.com. Or if it's easier to remember the book name, Hope for a New Era.com will get you to the same website. And I do have a page with other free resources as well, and information on the book.
Fantastic. Well, my closing comment is this. A lot of people feel like it's a daunting task, and some think it's impossible to make the changes we're talking about. But when I was doing some research one day, I came across a quote by somebody that really surprised me, Audrey Hepburn. And she said, "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible." And I thought that was so
there
beautiful.
You go. I love it. And it's true. When you have faith and action.
Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. And it's a miracle that we're here. And I think we need to celebrate the miracle.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks to all of you guys for listening and joining us. Hope you enjoyed the beautiful dialogue and getting a chance to meet Cynthia. I hope you enjoy her new book. Check out her website. Check out her free resources. Thank you to our beautiful sponsors for all the amazing products you make. Whenever you buy from our sponsors, that money goes to biodynamic, organic, and free-range farmers. So you support the planet, you support the people that are supporting us, and you support yourself, and you support the podcast, and that's a lot of love going in a circle, baby. And I look forward to having another exciting and interesting podcast in a week. And you never know which wise elder I might have next, or a young genius. We shall see. Lots of love. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek and today's guest, Cynthia Rivard. Make sure you pick up a copy of Cynthia's book, Hope for a New Era, Turning the Tide, Love and Leadership Through Turbulent Times, available on Amazon and at all good bookstores. You can connect with Cynthia on Instagram at CJ and Facebook at CJ.Rivard, or on her website www.cynthiarivard.com. For more interaction with Paul and to share ideas and ask questions about topics discussed in this podcast, we invite you to join his Spirit Gym program and community. There are 3 different levels of membership to fit your budget and lifestyle. You can participate in live Q&A sessions with podcast guests, access the members forum within the Spirit Gym community where you can chat with other members, attend weekly virtual meetups with Paul, and study his comprehensive Master Key online program. Explore the options and subscribe today by going to myspiritgym.com. And finally, if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review on the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.